I don't know about you, but I've been in a relationship before, but I haven't been married. My Uplift host, however, has been married for 35 years, and our guest today, she's an expert in relationships. So maybe it's the right spot for you to come and watch us live or in replay. Join the conversation.
Play.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Uplift. Whether you are joining us live or in replay, we appreciate you. Hey, my name's Sarah Wade. I'm a coach and art therapist, and I'm coming to you live from Perth in Western Australia. My co-host is on the other side of the world, joining us from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, Mr. Neil Thrussell. Great to have you.
Thank you, Sarah. It's great to be here, except I honestly have to say my attention is slightly divided. The Stanley Cup is on right now, and I'm here because actually I really love the topic that we're talking about today. Things to help save your marriage and make marriage a better thing for people. I'm really excited to have our guest on.
Awesome. And joining us from the Gold Coast, as she presses the wrong button, joining us from the Gold Coast, we have Nathalie Biviano joining us. Now, I don't know about you, but I've pressed a few wrong buttons in relationships before, just like I pressed on the screen there. And Nathalie, I'd like to hear from you. Have you ever pressed the wrong button in a relationship, and is that how you got right here today? Or is there some other magical reason that led you to today?
What a way to open up, and what a question, right? Pressing all the wrong buttons. You guys, firstly, thank you so much for having me. What a joy and delight just to be here having this conversation with you guys. And straight up, to answer that question, have I pressed all the wrong buttons? Yeah. That's the short answer, right? And so often, I don't know about you guys, you get this question, especially you kind of get into the coaching space and you really coach on a specific topic, and people will often ask, oh, so how did you get into coaching married mothers? And here's my short answer, which ties into the whole wrong button pressing. This is the short answer. You always teach what you need to learn.
Oh,
and so yeah, if we maybe just elaborate a little bit more on that wrong button pressing, you got to ask yourself, well, what were our references of relationships, and what were our models of what we look up to and aspire to and all those things, right? And if you think about it, and it goes all the way back when you're this little mini minor who didn't grow up on Disney, right? And so we had these fictitious fairy tales, which was so immersive, right? It was so immersive. And as a little bit of a side note, and I feel that this is probably relevant to share in terms of how amplified that was for me. As a kid, as I was growing up, my father, who's now passed on, it's been 10 years since he passed, greatest hero of my life, really incredible, talented artist. So I think you and him would have gotten on like a house on fire, Sarah, exchanging the creativity side of things. Really talented artist. And he worked for Disney. He worked for Walt Disney as an animator when I was a kid, right? And so our world was so, like, I'd see Dad doing the drawings. Back in the days, he'd have the flippy of the animation and the cells. And so I really witnessed a deep, deep immersion of these fairy tales. And we'd get passes to go watch Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, Simba. And, you get these stories that tell you when boy meets girl, love happens, and what happens at the end of every Disney flick, like it ends at the kiss. It ends at, Simba and Nala holding up the little baby cub, and it ends with an Elton John sonnet. You know what I mean? Like it just ends with happy days. And then so we don't get insight, or we don't get a sneak peek. We don't get any view or reference of what life looks like post-marriage, post-children. We just don't. And then when you're there, you kind of have to work it out in real time, if you know what I mean. And so to kind of answer your right, you kind of have to work it out with, add to that, on zero sleep, on a whole new world, and forgive the reference to Aladdin, you are navigating an entirely new dynamic, because once upon a time when you were in dink lifestyle, DINK, double income, no kids, it was a very carefree world. It was a very abundance of time, perhaps even a abundance of disposable income. Like there were no constraints. There was so much movement, freedom, flexibility, all the things. And then you transition over into marriage, motherhood, and it's an entirely different world. And that transition was the greatest shock of my life, the greatest shock. And I know that sounds, on the outset, you're like, well, duh, of course, it's a totally different world. Of course, things are going to be different. So theoretically and cognitively and intellectually, we kind of all understand that, right? But when you are on the ground trying to work this out, and still, I guess, in a very unconscious way, still formatively attached to that fantasy, to that fiction, to that fairy tale of what life would look like with your protector, with your person, with your safe person, with your, things are going to be, can you feel the love tonight? Like that was going to go on forever and ever and ever, right? It just doesn't pan out that way. And so, Sarah, did I press lots of buttons? Oh yes, all the wrong ones, lots of them.
I love that.
So I've been married for 39. Well, it'll be 39 years in July. We had been my wife and I didn't live together prior to our marriage, so we went on our honeymoon, and we'd been back, and we'd been together 24/7 for 2 weeks. And I had washed the dishes. No, Tina was washing the dishes, and I was sitting at the table, and all of a sudden she just burst into tears. And I come screaming out of my chair, and I look, because her hands are in the dishwater, and I thought she had cut herself. And I take her hands out, and I'm looking, and I'm trying to figure out what the heck is wrong. And she's going, "This has been fun, but I want you to go home now." And it's like, they're shocked that this was her life now, and she couldn't undo it. And she wasn't horrified at me or our relationship. It was just the realization that this was permanent. There was no way to undo it, and it was just the reality crashing down. And did it crush my soul? No. But did it give me a little bit ouch? Yes. But it was so I can relate when you said it was the greatest wake-up call going on. And for Tina, it was just like, whoa.
Neil, forgive me for laughing as you were just sharing that story. But it really does feel that a rug has been pulled underneath from you, and you fall flat, whichever way you fall, either flat on your face or flat on your ass. Either way, it kind of is ouchy. And then I think, as with how our worlds have evolved, we've become so villageless in our modern times. And I'll never forget these wise words from Esther Perel, who I have deeply learnt from. Esther Perel, who's been studying couples for over 40 years. She highlights how the the biggest problem in modern marriages is the unprecedented expectations that we hold on to the one person. And so once upon a time, we had an entire village to meet our different needs as humans. But now we've morphed into this world, and this is with the advent of technology, with such a transitional world, and just we're in total urbanization, gentrification, and just we are so dispersed, right? You can just pick up and go, and we can Zoom anywhere, right? Out of you just need Wi-Fi and a laptop. With that benefit of deep connection elsewhere, we actually have lost village. We've lost village. And so one of the things I think that was so not obvious at the time, but yeah, the pressure that a marriage holds is that you do have these expectations on the one person to meet all those needs, emotional needs, physical needs, spiritual needs, intellectual needs. And it's a lot. It's really a lot.
Absolutely. And then you add into the relationship. My wife and I didn't have children, but you add that all of a sudden now, I as a male, where my partner and I, my wife and I, whatever, we have this great relationship. It's one-on-one, and then all of a sudden there's competition because there's this child that we both love, but who demands, like the minute it comes from the womb, it demands 100% attention. And many men feel separated and distinct, at this point in time, because we're put second.
The hard spot.
Really...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I reckon, I don't know about you, Nathalie, but as a mum, I know I've pressed the wrong buttons too. I've gone in expecting things that didn't happen. And I know my partners have experienced this too. And I feel like the expectations button, that's the one that we hit too often and we don't collaborate on. Would that be fair to say? Do you see that too?
Oh, Sarah, you hit the biggest button.
Yeah.
And, in the work that I do with women, with married mothers, right, we kind of get onto the other side of, raising humans, hardest job there ever is/was. And as the marriage has its disconnection points, we ask ourselves what contributed to that. And right to your point, Sarah, that's what it comes to. These unrealistic expectations. And, if we kind of just dive a little bit deeper in this space, what does that then lead to when you hold these expectations of someone else? It leads to significant resentment. Because when you're expecting someone to either behave a certain way or to do something or to not do something, he said that thing, how dare he? Or, my goodness, she's so inconsiderate. What was she thinking? Like, you're expecting someone else to do something or not do something, right? And so when we have these expectations, it just creeps, and the residual impact of that is just this resentment which calcifies. And then that just creates this barrier, burden, boundary in between this connection piece. So at the heart of what I observe as to why resentment occurs in relationships is expectations. And it's huge. It's really huge.
So can we just back up and blame Disney then? Like, that's fair, right? Our expectations started inside. We had the scenario happening. Prince Charming was going to come and rescue me. Not that I needed rescuing, of course, because everything's perfect in my life. But, it's really not. So can we just go ahead and blame Disney and end the show now? Or is there more to explore here?
Well, I think that's definitely one part of it, right? We kind of have to ask ourselves, well, where did our relationship, marital expectations, where do they derive from? And certainly for me, yes, Disney played a big role in that. And then if I didn't have these cartoons that I was watching, I also had my parents to model off. That's the only reference. And yes, I really had loving warm, nurturing parents who often, because they were, you know, refugees from Cambodia, transitioning and assimilating into Australia, trying to make life work, meaning no one's coming to save us. You have to get on with life, which meant they were absent for a long part of our childhood. We had to just get on with it, if you know what I mean. So there was emotional absence, which means, okay, well, mum and dad aren't really around. We kind of just have to work out how to relationally connect with each other. And then when things get tough, all those conversations around finances, around, you know, extended family of origin and who's doing what and what, like these things, you witness that, and a lot of conversations get swept under the rug and you put on a smile, right? And you just get on with it. So yes, Disney has its place. And then it's like, well, what has been your role modeling? And I know for me, I observed a lot of conversations that were really hard, that weren't done in a manner that was, I guess, helpful to witness. And why? Because how were they to know any better? Did anyone get any skills or education or classes or tutorials around this? The short answer is no. No one was taught this stuff. No one was taught about how to communicate our needs effectively. No one was taught about how to set boundaries. No one was taught about how to express our desires. No, all these things, right, that really make up and culminate that dance. Like Neil's talking about 39 years of marriage. What would be at the kind of, what's the through line and the theme of sustaining such longevity? There'd be a really big piece of communication, of active listening, of being able to understand each other, have bandwidth for compassion and supporting each other. And does life look 50-50? Absolutely no way at all, because life happens, illnesses happen, aging parents happen. What do we do about it? Like there's so many different, I guess, external events that occur and come into our lives. How do we get our child off to sport and give them this even keel life? How do we balance all? Oh my goodness, like there's so much, right? So much. And how do we make that work?
And for me, for Tina and I, the 39 years were made easier because we decided early on that if we're going to disagree, to fight fair, to not go to bed mad, and to forgive easy. That there should, like, why would I hold a grudge with to the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with? And especially for me, once I was finished being annoyed, angry, I've done my foot stomping and I've thrown the thing, the newspaper up in the air and all of the bad behaviors, it was incumbent upon me, not as a male, but me as a human, that once I was finished, I needed to make sure I apologized and cleaned up my attitude and was sorry for how I acted and sought forgiveness for my actions. And my wife, Tina, was equally that she went through, she didn't throw things, but she'd get mad and stomp because she was very easily excited. And it was like, don't go to bed mad. Sometimes it meant we stayed up really late.
Oh, Neil, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I think what I heard you say in that piece was this ability to have what it is that you need to let out, be explicit with sharing all these things, but then in the aftermath of that, taking radical responsibility for your own behavior. And something that I really have noticed and observed is there's a lot of blame that goes on, a lot of finger pointing and, well, if he said this, then I wouldn't have to act this way. Well, if he would have, like, there's a lot of let's go external. And I think what you alluded to is just one of the most powerful pieces that make successful relationships, if you can take radical responsibility, because these words from a therapist, she's based in the States, her name's Dr. Jennifer Finlayson-Fife. She says, you can't change your partner. You can only change your participation in the pattern. It is one of the most favorite sayings that I say all day, every day to my clients, which then tells them, wow, what am I contributing? How am I participating in this interaction, in this dialogue? And if we can come in and own that, the way that we behaved was not helpful. The way that we threw that up in the air was not helpful. The way that we said those things was very hurtful. If we can really take supreme ownership of that, game changer. Game changer. And go on, you were about to say something.
One of the pieces of advice that I had received was that I was 100% responsible for my actions, and I was 100% responsible for the success of my marriage. No one else. And if I looked at it, it was entirely my responsibility, without blame, shame, guilt, any of that. And it was me to make sure that I'm pouring everything into it. And equally, my wife was at the same workshop. She got the talk too, that she was 100% responsible. And it's amazing when you take that, because I don't know about you, but 39 sometimes felt like a lot of work. It seemed like, oh my God, what the hell have I done? Why are we still talking about this?
Oh, Neil, I love that. Sarah, were you about to say something?
I had a similar conversation when I gave birth to this young lady. So our nurse came up and said, she's 100% your responsibility to my partner. And then turned to me and said, she's 100% your responsibility. There's no 50-50 in this. And I thought that is brilliant advice, because you got to go 100% in. And look at the smile on her face now. She's 100% here and loving it. And I think the same, is obvious in all kinds of relationships. And I appreciate this conversation. Nathalie, what would you say if we all put 100% in, whether we are all in on yellow or all in on blue? How do we come to that mutual meeting in the middle?
What a great question. Because if we take our part for our side of the road 100% of the time, there's no room for competition. Because as I think about that, and one of the common things that I see frequently in my world, and with the community that I serve, I hear this frequently. I just want us to operate like a team. I just want us to be real teammates, and that we're on the same page. So they frequently talk about how there's this great desire to be in union, in togetherness, in can we be on the same team? And also in the same breath, and this is the part where we don't realize, I guess, there's what our higher self wants, and then our actions and behaviors is actually dictating how we're really behaving from. Their behaviors are showing a lot of competition. So even though they say, I want us to be a part of a team, yet in conversations, which turns into conflict, I have to have the last word. I have to make sure that I'm right. Right? So when we have to have the last word, when we are the ones that have to be right, that becomes, if I'm right, that means I've won. So if I've won, someone else has lost, which means it is a battle, which means how do we one up each other, which means there's no room for teamwork. There's no room for coming together as 100% together. Does that make sense, Sarah? Does that answer your question? I feel like when we don't take complete ownership of 100%, it just won't allow for an all the way coming in, because somehow he's always doing something wrong. That's just my observation, right? This is all my observation with the women that I work with. As much as I do want it, but you can't stack the dishwasher that way. No, that's wrong. No, you can't be parenting that way. No, that's wrong. Right? There's always, I want you to be with me, but don't do it that way. Do it my way, right? Which is, there's an element of, this is not my 100%. I can't give him 100% if I'm not allowing him to be. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I was curious, thinking potentially that you might say something like, well, you're 100% yellow. Great. Neil and I are fighting over the buttons, I think, here. If you're 100% yellow and he's 100% green, when you come together, perhaps Team Green can rock. I might have got my colors mixed up then. I meant 100% yellow and 100% blue, and then you come together and then there's Team Green. So you're 100% in Team Green. That doesn't mean to say that you forget about who you are. There's no people pleasing needed. There's no other steps needed. You're still you. You're still 100% yellow. It's just that you've also joined Team Green.
Yes.
I'm curious to know how that, when you're in the team and you realize you're Team Green and you're 100% in on that team and 100% in on yourself, what are some of the things that you notice that your clients go through at this point, and maybe Team Green starts getting a bit muddied and sort of fading out a little bit, and it's maybe more blue than yellow, or there's a bit of a controlling clash. Your thoughts and opinions here?
I love this. I love this color analogy. So when we do come into Team Green, if I'm yellow and he's blue and we're Team Green, I think one of the biggest things is to notice how precious Team Green is. And then if there was deeper reverence for Team Green, the way that you would treat a crystal ball, you would put this on a mantelpiece. You would polish it daily. You would really respect, revere, and appreciate it, right? You would be consistently giving it luster and shine. I often observe that once Team Green comes into place, it can often be, I don't know, maybe periodically, it's Father's Day, it's Christmas, it's Valentine's Day. So these are kind of the hallmarks as to when Team Green should be coming together or really be paid attention to. Whereas if you saw Team Green as the cornerstone, as the equity of the foundation of the entire kind of setup of the house, if you will, how do we nurture this consistently in micro moments? And so what I mean by that is when we bring in Team Green, how do we hold it and respect it on a consistent basis, not from I'm only contributing as my yellow is me, I'm 100%, and just an as and when I feel ready and able to. Does that make sense? It's more like how do I really have deep reverence for Team Green consistently? I'm not sure if that's answered your question. I think we've gone down another route with that.
I want to bring back, we were speaking before about expectations. So one thing that I've noticed is that whether you're partnered or not, we all eat, we all drink, we all have dishes and washing, we all have stuff to do, right? One of the things that I've noticed can cause a lot of angst is that, it's just her job to do the dishes, or it's her job to do whatever, or it's his job to do this. The lack of conversation around that, getting back to that, can be part of the reason Team Green isn't working. How do you start that conversation? Come on, Team Green.
Yeah.
If you notice it's not working.
I hear you. A simple language swap can be really helpful. When we use collective language, such as we, us, together. We are living in this house together. We all eat. We need to all contribute. I know that when my kids are 10 and 13, and it's not just my job to be cleaning up the dishes. We all eat. We all have a place in this household to contribute. So we use a lot of inclusive language. And I'll give you a specific example, Sarah, as it relates to his job versus my job versus how do we start to really center our lives as Team Green. I remember when, it was kind of still early days-ish for Rob and I. Rob, my husband's name's Rob. We've been in partnership for 19 years, and when we first kind of started our adventures together, you know that you're with your person, and then we started building a business together. And so my husband's trade, he's a mechanic, and so as he was venturing out, and we said, okay, you know what, let's do this thing, he would come back and tell me about the day of, I spent this today, I had to pay this supplier today, I, right? So there was a lot of I statements that he'd made. And what I'd found from my point of view, it felt very I versus him versus me versus, like it wasn't, I know it wasn't intentional for him to kind of keep it to himself, but for someone who is so dedicated to Team Green, right? So committed to making sure that we have deep connection, harmony, togetherness, I really made an explicit point to say, honey, when you say I, it makes me feel excluded. I'd really just love if you included me as part of this, because if we're building this thing together, it's an us thing. It's us and we. And then so from that conversation so many years ago, day to day now, it just has evolved and transitioned to everything is us and we, everything with the household duties, everything with raising the kids, everything with the runnings of our business, like everything is ours. It becomes a focus and an emphasis on the green. And to answer your question, it just comes from a language swap.
Like a win-win-win for all with a language swap. Who would have thought language can help us, right?
Right?
Thank you. So going forward then, like there's amazing getting back to Disney, there's amazing shows that talk to us like Inside Out, that shows us we all have emotions, we all have needs and feelings, and there's a time and a place for all of them, right? Mm-hmm. How do we learn to identify these things and get that spine tingling marriage? Maybe there's some things that are unspoken or that maybe they assumed that you knew. How do you understand this side of things?
Oh, goodness me. Okay, we are totally getting into like a parts conversation when we're talking about Inside Out. I'm wondering if I could speak to the needs part of that question, Sarah. When we have unmet needs, it often comes out in the form of a complaint. And so my biggest advice to those who are listening, catching the replay, is like, notice what you complain about the most. Notice what your partner is complaining about the most. Oh my gosh, you're always on your phone. Oh my gosh, you never spend time with me. Oh my gosh, you like not even a kiss, hello? Like, what are you complaining about the most? And this gives you clues as to what your needs are. And so if we know that we are feeling possibly neglected, we know that our need is to have quality time or to have prioritized digital free time, or we know that our need is to have some physicality, whether it's just, a hug a tap on the shoulder, a little bit of a butt tap by the dishwasher, or if it's actually, you know, behind closed doors into more of a deeply intimate scene. Physical touch could be either or, right? When we start to complain about things, that gives us clues as to what we need, and it's our job to express our needs, because our partners are not mind readers. And especially if you've been, you know, with someone for a duration, they should just know. He should just know what I want. She should just be aware. Like, how long has she been with me? Like, I know here in Australia, Sarah, we had a ban on plastic bags. It might have been about 5 years ago. And like, I know that we don't get plastic bags anymore at the shop. And so therefore I will pack bags ready in the boot to go into the shops. But every single time I go into the shops, who always forgets their bags? Like, you will always forget, you know what I mean, right? Who's that person when you're like, I'm going to go shopping, and you do not bring the green bags, but even though it's been in place for so many years, right? So then how, as this relates in context to our partner, unless we communicate it, and frequently, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, perhaps yearly would be a stretch. Like, we've got to communicate our needs. I asked him once 4 years ago. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I've already told him what I want.
I don't change. He doesn't change.
I'm sick of asking for the same thing over and over again. I have asked him. I went, okay, cool. Did you request it or did you demand it?
For me personally, what I can struggle with as a long time is allowing or observing, better word, observing that my wife's preferences and desires have changed. So I will go on the programming. While it worked yesterday, it was today or 2 weeks ago or a month ago, a year ago, it worked. And well, now this is different. You know, it's like going to a restaurant and choosing something different. No, it's Tuesday. You have to have this. And allowing the relationship to, and if there was a stereotypical way, it's something that stereotypical men get blamed for. And in some cases rightly so, that we are not as observant as to the changes that have occurred, and we may not catch them as quick. And if we don't catch them, then whoever you're partnered with, don't shoot the guy that's not being able to see it. Help him see it, or help her see that there's been a change, that your new favorite flavor is whatever. It's no longer something else.
I love that, Neil. I love that so much. It's so good, right? We get so accustomed and we get into habits and cyclical patterns. And then, as you know, we seasonally change, and then, you know, month to month a woman changes, if you know what I mean, right? And so it's like, how do you stay attuned to your own needs yourself, and how do you communicate that to everyone else versus expecting everyone else to just know? And when people don't know, how do you extend grace and curiosity versus going down the line of crucifixion, right? How do you eliminate that blame, shame, and criticism, which is so we're so very quick to go down that path without realizing how damaging it is to blame, shame, and criticize. These are modern day weapons in relationships. And even if you're on your own, right, even if you're not partnered, like, what does internal dialogue look like for you? Does it go down the path of blaming yourself, criticizing yourself, shaming yourself, judging yourself? Like, these are grenades, these are machetes, these are landmines that we bring into conversations with ourselves, conversations with our spouse. And so something that I hear frequently is, oh my goodness, it just feels like a battlefield. We're just trying to have a conversation about, you know, what's for dinner. It ends up being a World War III. I'm like, how is that possible? I'm like, how is that actually possible when we're talking about a daily logistical thing that occurs? And it starts to become very apparent that there's blame, shame, and criticism in that dialogue. You never blaming you. And so, I mean, it's just recognizing how harmful these modern weapons are.
Absolutely. And I think every couple, I don't know, like every couple needs some time away, just the two of them, to refocus on the relationship. What is it that you recommend? I assume you recommend some form of date nights or some form of getting together, and just refocusing, not even the romantic part of the relation, but refocusing on the making Team Green, going back to Sarah's, to making Team Green the best possible version. What is it that the people that you're working with, how is it you get them to get back onto Team Green after a while?
Neil, great question. And depending on the season, so I work with married mothers, so they have children from different ages, right? And depending on the season they're in, whether they're at school age or even younger, if they're in the season of still baby on boob, you've got to really kind of ask yourself, how do we concentrate on Team Green? Recognize the season that you're in and really honor it. And so it's a question of what pocket of time are we talking about? Do we have 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks to connect, right? And so depending on your season, it's going to vary what that pocket of time looks like. Sometimes, you know, in the throes of quicksand, when you are operating on zero sleep, you might literally have 2 minutes to connect. And so what does that look like? It looks like a 20-second hug. It looks like a 6-second kiss. Right? And then finding these, it's so crucial. Thank you, Neil, for bringing this up, because this is the lifeboat for the entire relationship. Because if we don't contribute to Team Green, if we don't continually pour and deposit emotional equity into that bank account, it becomes very bankrupt very, very soon, right? And so something that I really encourage and invite my clients every single week, right? Depending, it doesn't even matter what kind of phase or stage they're in their season, is just to do a weekly ritual at minimum. And so I call it Watering Wednesday. So it is just a weekly check-in. Why Watering Wednesday? Because the grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where we water it. And the Buddha also said that if you like a flower, you'll pick it. But if you love a flower, you'll water it. And so what is Watering Wednesday? Yes, it's a little bit of alliteration. Does it have to be on a Wednesday? No, it doesn't. It basically means, can it be done on a consistent basis? There's 2 rules to Watering Wednesday. It cannot be about the kids. It cannot be about the kids or logistics. What's happening for dinner? Did that bill get paid? Like, oh my God, did you see how cute they were when they received their assembly award? Like, no, none of that, right? Nothing about logistics, nothing about kids. And Watering Wednesday cannot come in with the expectation to receive a ditto response. Like, you don't do it. You don't show appreciation. You don't water the green with the expectation that they'll do it back to you, right? So we're talking about radical responsibility. How do we take part 100%? Every single week, it's just sending a quick text. And it takes, 15 seconds to send a text, whether it's 1 sentence or 1 word. Even if you sent to your text, if your spouse had sent you a text on, like, I mean, you've got stuff going on. There's a big boardroom meeting. Oh my goodness, you've been working towards his presentation, and you get a text that says, "Hi, thinking of you. Smash your presentation today." It's volume, right? It's currency. And so how do we do these little dips of Watering Wednesday every week? That's it. It's either a text or a phone call, which basically says, "I appreciate you. You know, when you sat last night with our son while he was reading, gosh, that made me admire you." Boom, full stop. And you do that weekly. Their text messages, their bank of text messages, there'll be 365 of them. No, hang on, 52. Sorry, I just went, like, my marriage maths just went out the window then. But at minimum, right, if you do this weekly, you're going to have 50 deep notes of credit versus the one day on February 14th. Oh my God, I love you. Amazing. Like, if you're banking on these kind of other days to remind you to do these things, I think we're skating on thin ice.
Absolutely. Those times in between the times, like, I don't know about you, but I've read comics, or I've at least seen comics before, right? And just like you can see on the screen in front of you, you know, that there's segments, but that's the bit that the comic focuses on. It's those bits in between those sections that really make the difference. And that's really what you're talking to, isn't it?
100%, right? Because it's like, how do you buffer? How do you create more bubble wrap in your marriage? How do you make the green so big, bold, protective, and full of cushioning and marshmallows? Appreciation, thank you notes, acknowledgement, validation, support. I got your back. Oh my goodness, I'm so proud of us. Like, these things, right? And sure, verbally. And then there's, like, how do we do things in action? People have different love languages. So how do you really speak to your spouse's love language? Make this green as cushiony and with as much margin as possible. Because when we do have that screw up, because when we do have that fight, when we do have that conflict, we just have more bounce. You know what I'm saying? You're not falling flat with nothing to land on. You've just got a wider trapeze net when you fall.
Makes sense.
I know for me, when she opens the dishwasher and she looks at it and she just hits wash and walks away and doesn't try to restack it.
I love that.
For me, it's the recognition that, because I know she's gonna go, but that she just calmly accepts it without, and then just hits the wash and goes. To me, it's like, oh.
That's so good. I love that, Neil. That's so good. It's like, yes.
Little things in life can be so big, can't they? And I love how the simple act of just pressing start made you light up, Neil. Like, you're exuberant right now as you said that. It was absolutely beautiful. And I wonder, for our viewers, how can they put that in your life? I'm wondering, Nathalie, is this the sort of thing that you'll be talking about in your relationship reset, or is that a different sort of line of way of helping people?
Thank you for asking, Sarah. So in my 5-day relationship reset challenge, I talk about the two biggest themes that I see are the biggest barriers to deeper connection. And we alluded and we touched on it in our conversation today. Resentment is huge. So I really speak about, let us get to deconstructing and let us look at the carcass of resentment. If we can really lift the hood as to what causes the resentment, boom, then we can really start to eliminate the resentment. That's what blocks connection. Another second theme that I see, and this is what I speak to in the challenge, is that women are operating in hypermasculinity. And this is a huge theme. A really huge theme. And I know a couple of weeks ago, you had the most beautiful guest, Yeleni, who talked a lot about masculine and feminine energies, and such a great episode, you guys. So good. So I really encourage your listeners to really follow up on hearing more about that if that's not familiar vernacular to them. But these are the two biggest themes that I see. that women are operating in hypermasculinity. Why? Why is this a problem? Because when we have two masculine energies in a relationship, there's no polarity. There is no connection, like a magnet, right? You can't have a negative and a negative, like they just will repel each other. So you need that masculine and feminine polarity. And when you've got two masculine energies in a partnership, and this is just how it's been constructed because of external systems such as, you know, the patriarch, such as cultural systems, such as the educational system, and there's so many reasons that have contributed as to why women are operating in hypermasculinity. But when we have these two energies, at best, two masculine energies give us roommate status. And at worst, we get competitors. And
So your
neither
roommates
of
are
those, pretty much, right? That's it. And that's what happens. And so as part of the challenge, you know, I really speak to this topic and to really get women to really identify and locate themselves as to where they are on that level of homeostasis. We're always just looking for that, what is my sweet spot balance? Because what I've noticed with the work that I do, just over the years, you just see them just at full throttle with hypermasculine energy. And when you're on go, 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 achieve, do, like, of course they're going to be burnt out. Of course they're going to be exhausted. Of course they're going to be resentful and all the things that come with that. And of course there's going to be no connection. And so when we kind of just strip it back and go, okay, what is the cause of this disconnect? Why so much separation? Simply two things, hypermasculinity and resentment. When we can debunk those, boom, it's a game changer. It's a game changer. And so that's what the challenge is about. So thank you for asking.
So if people are interested in joining your challenge, they best to reach out via Facebook, which is going across the screen right now. Yes, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, that is correct. Yes. So you'll find me on Facebook. My name is just as it is written there, Nathalie Biviano. And I love connecting with humans. So send me a friend request. Let's connect. And if this is something that you'd love to undertake, I can't wait to share more with you if that's you.
Fantastic. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't like the idea of A or B. I like the idea of C. So I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to come and join your challenge and learn from the master. Master, if I press the wrong button again after doing your challenge, do I blame you? What do I do?
Exactly. That's exactly what you need to do.
Okay,
I love it. Oh, Sarah. Firstly, I actually really love the word master. I love mastery. I love that you use that word because why? What is mastery? Mastery is being a student every single day. This is mastery. Showing up as a student, showing up, being curious, learning, falling flat, getting back up again. This is mastery. This is mastery. And so if you were to, come onto my challenge, learn the things that you do, start implementing it. I've heard feedback that, within 5 days, people quite literally start to transform marriages. So people come in on a status of we're actually separated. And then after the 5 days, they actually go, wow, things have changed so significantly for us. So the short, takeaway from that is in such a short amount of time, change is possible. Change is possible. And so if you come onto the challenge and you say, well, if things just don't go right, get curious about that. Get curious about that and ask yourself, right, if we're talking about how do we contribute more to the green, but in order to do that, right, we have to take 100% responsibility on our end. And sure, this could be like totally loaded. Everyone comes from a different set point. We all start with different levels of views of the world based on our family of origin, based on our trauma, based on our wounds, based on our life experiences. What do we then bring to relationships? We bring all of that. Which is why maybe we are pressing the wrong buttons. But if we have an opportunity to start pressing the buttons that, open some more doors for connection, what a beautiful place that would be.
Absolutely. Oh, I don't know about you, but I've learned a bit in this episode, and I'm looking forward to seeing where things are going from here. My small human is knocking on my door, so I'm going to leave for a second and let you two do a thing. Expectations of children, right?
Right? Sarah, I love that you said that. And if you have to get going to your little one, please do that. And like I work with mums, and their level of stress levels are heightened because I'm like, oh my gosh, my kids just do all this crazy shit. I'm so stressed. Oh my gosh, can't they just, like, we're at the Christmas concert. This was kind of last December. My kids are just jumping all over the place. I've packed all this sandwich and stuff. All they want to do is run over to the sausage sizzle. Oh my gosh, they're driving me crazy. So her internal stress levels are so high, because she had these crazy expectations that her kids were just going to not have sausage sizzle. Of course kids are going to have sausage sizzle. Of course kids are going to be climbing over fences. That's what kids are supposed to do. Kids are supposed to do crazy dumb stuff, and so she was always saying, oh my God, why do they keep doing all this dumb shit? And precisely that, Sarah, it was these expectations that my kid would be an adult or behave, like that was 3, 4, 7, 9. Like, kids are supposed to do crazy things.
That's their job, right? Yeah,
that's their job. That's their job,
yeah.
Precisely. And that was a huge piece for her.
Mm-hmm.
What are my expectations? Oh, so good.
And I look at the clock and I go, how is this possible? How have we almost used an hour? And I think we have just barely scratched the surface of any of this. And we could go on for hours and hours and hours more, but we can't. I would like to, but we can't. So I would like to leave us with a thought that wherever you are in your relationship, consider taking 100% responsibility, and not from a place of guilt that, oh, it's up to me to fix it, but from a place of that I want to make this work, that I really love to make this work, and I love myself enough that I'm willing to give 100% of myself into this relationship and give that a whirl. Nathalie, what would you like to leave our viewers and listeners with?
Oh gosh, Neil, you summarized that so beautifully. Gosh, that was just so potent. And what I would really love to impart to your viewers, and this is an extension from what I see so frequently, so it's infused with what I see, is that we need to ask for support and not permission. Ask for support, not permission, especially as it relates to women who have been so conditioned to be this good girl, good wife, good daughter, and waiting for others to validate us. And I truly believe that women and mothers hold such capacity to be healers of the home. And to your point, Neil, it's not about, oh gosh, it's all on me to fix. Not from that point of view. From a empowered, really graceful, really elegant, and really strong feminine leadership. And so it's this ability to, when you can ask for support, not permission, game changer.
Ooh.
Thank you.
Excellent. We appreciate you joining us today, Nathalie. I trust our viewers got something out of it today. If you would like to get in touch with Nathalie, please feel free. She's had all her handles all over the screen. If you are listening to this podcast, don't worry, all the information will be in the comments too. Now, from us to you, know that we appreciate you, we love you, and we expect nothing of you, except maybe to join us next episode. Come and join us in a fortnight time. We would love to see you then. In fact, if you would like to catch up in old episodes, we can do that too in all the usual stations and channels. From us to you. Talk soon and design a life you desire. You're worth it.